guys, Logan here, and today I'm going to be giving you guys yet another 2019 movie review. This time, I'm going to be reviewing Serenity. No, not the 2005 Joss Whedon version of Serenity, this year's version of Serenity, directed by Stephen Knight and starring Matthew McConaughey and Hathaway. So Baker Dill, played by Matthew McConaughey, is a fishing boat captain leading tours off a tranquil tropical enclave called Plymouth Island. His quiet life is shattered, however, when his ex-wife Karen, played by Anne Hathaway, tracks him down with a desperate plea for help. This movie was so weird and so confusing. I mean, none of it makes any sense. It's particularly the twist at the end of the film, which I will get into in just a minute without spoiling it. But almost everything about this movie was just bananas. It was an absolute bananas, just what I was watching. I could barely describe the type of film that I just watched. I just couldn't believe what type of film that I just got done watching. It was just ridiculous. There are some positives that I will say for this movie, though. And one of them being Matthew McConaughey. He was really good in this movie. He made a great, crazy, over-the-top performance in this film as this despicable man who has an obsession with fishing for a tuna that he always wants to do. Ever since, I'm not going to spoil it, but ever since from the past, which was his troubled and dark past that he deals with, particularly with his family. Anne Hathaway gave a pretty good performance as well, although her character was written as a socially weird porn star type of character that you're just not accustomed to seeing Anne Hathaway played as. This is not the Anne Hathaway that I am accustomed to seeing. This is a different Anne Hathaway character that I've seen her played as, but she gave a good performance, I will say. And the cinematography looks really good. This is a really sleek looking movie, particularly with the oceans and what they look and how they look, based on the color scheme of it, and just how this movie is filmed, particularly with the cinematography and how it's done. I cannot dish on that. The cinematography is done very well. However, that pretty much ends the road for me when it comes to giving positives about Serenity. This movie, like I just said, is just utterly bananas in more ways than one, actually. Just ways that I couldn't help but just laugh based on how hilarious and nonsensical, but also hilarious, that things in this film were or are. It's really difficult to describe the true meaning and the main purpose of what this film is really about. The trailers, that they didn't really spoil everything, but they also didn't really show you what the movie was about. The trailers were misleading if you have seen this film. It just went all over the place in terms of the storytelling, with so many subplots that are, you can argue, were unnecessary, and some, dialogue or a lot of the dialogue actually, that is just really cringeworthy. And that, combined with the over-the-top and ridiculous and absurd premise that this movie has, and how this film executes its premise, which is again absurd, but it knows that it's absurd as well as its premise, so it just goes for it and just embraces the ridiculousness and absurdity that it has, and what type of film it truly is. And I can kind of appreciate that, but at the same time, I can't overlook about how so confusing and so weird this movie is, and how nonsensical it is. storytelling wise. Now let's talk about the twist at the end of the film. But now I'm not going to spoil it because just in case you haven't seen it, although I would imagine that most of you have seen it, but just in case you haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. But let me say this about the twist. It is it is stupid and absurd. It's just dumb, but in a way that was just hysterical. I mean, when that twist happened, first of all, I forgot to mention this, but this movie was also predictable. I mean, there were so many sudden or subtle / obvious hints that this movie was giving that I knew what was going to happen later on in the film. And then as we were getting into the finale of this film, I was like, yep, that's exactly what I thought was going to happen, and stuff like that. But going back to the twist, the way that twist turned out to be and how it, shows you what this film's overall premise is about and what it actually tells you when you look back at the film in its entirety, it makes zero sense whatsoever. Zero sense whatsoever. It really confuses you, and you don't know exactly what it was trying to say. You kind of get the impression that the director for this film, Stephen Knight, was trying to be bold with what he was doing with this film. His direction and his hands on what he was, just using his hands on this film and try to make it so weird and confusing, or enough to where you can actually. The film asks you to try to figure out certain things that you might notice that are hints to what would actually happen. And again, I just could not believe how bad this movie is. I mean, it's so. I said this a few times already in this review, but it's a so bad it's good film that just is very illogical and nonsensical, and just everything else about it makes no sense, particularly with the twist at the end of the film. It was done in a way that doesn't make sense, but it just gets you laughing so loud and hard. I couldn't help but laugh when that twist happened. I was just like, something like that. Like I said earlier, it's really difficult for me to describe how this movie was made, and how the people in this film, especially the ones like Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway and Diane Lane, and so many A-list actors that are Oscar caliber actors, would be in this film. It's really difficult for me to describe the true purpose for this film and how it was made. I'm going to give Serenity a bronze Medal of Honor. So anyway, guys, that is my review for Serenity. If you guys enjoyed my review, please click the like button, and if you have already watched this movie, comment below and let me know what you think of it. If you enjoyed what you see in here and you want to see future videos from me, please press up there to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great week, Battle Squad, and as always, fight the good fight.